So, I've been kind of sad and bitter and full of rage lately for some reason. And so, since Disney is the source of all my ills, I of course spent a lot of time on Disney Plus in the last few months. After watching Moana for roughly the 400th time, I started watching The Little Mermaid a lot. So, we're gonna talk about The Little Mermaid. Well, this is the brand now.
Miserable, lonely, and depressed. Pathetic.
And all of the effort it deserves.
You get nothing! You lose!
So why The Little Mermaid? Well, I kind of wanted to reevaluate how my feelings on the movie had changed. Because I was mildly, a detractor at some point in history, I think. I don't know, I don't remember the 2000s very well. But my opinion is now that The Little Mermaid is good, actually. It's not the greatest ever, but, pretty good. So around my 10th Little Mermaid rewatch in the month of April, I found myself revisiting all of the mermaid discourse of the time, along with the Disney princess discourse in general. The 2000s, early 2010s.
I am ambitious, brave,
Strong,
romantic, imaginative, yet totally repressed. Cause next the Disney dudes were just some damsels in distress.
And in this state of brain decay, I now find myself wondering, was all that necessary?
What are you gonna do about it?
I guess I could stand up for myself.
Yes, you
No,
can say, that's
I'm
what I'm
just gonna wait for a man to save me.
Am I the only one who remembers the lazy Disney pop feminisms of the 2000s? Because I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that those hot takes that called out Disney movies as not being girl boss enough.
I'm not under the sea, but standing on dry land. The moral of my story's changing for a man.
These criticisms that have been incorporated into 10 Disney movies ever since.
Lions, attack! Let's go, girls.
Have aged more poorly than the movies themselves, especially The Little Mermaid. So we're making a thing out of it. I guess I'll make it into a list of, lists used to do well in the algorithm. I don't know if they still do.
pathetic.
And we're gonna do it in two sections. First, we're going to talk about the bad feminism of the 2000s and 2010s, because that's something I haven't really seen much reevaluated. And then the gay shit. Because it's Pride Month, it's time to talk about some gay shit.
Let's go, lesbians! Let's go, lesbians! Excuse me, lesbians coming through!
So this is the top something number about The Little Mermaid.
Somebody should find that poor animal and put it out of its misery.
Part 2, something feminism. So one thing I feel like we kind of need to, metaphorically smash is the lens of the lazy pop feminism of the late 2000s through which we have all for some reason agreed to view Disney princess through.
Then I have to assume you made a deal with an underwater sea witch where she took your voice in exchange for a pair of human legs? No! Good lord, who would do that?
Wait, you got engaged to someone you just met that day?
Yeah, anyway.
For a while in the late 2000s, these memes were all over the place. Save a prince's life with her only asset, her sexuality. Did we even watch the same movie?
Stupid.
So in addition to this really lazy one-dimensional bad faith reads of all these movies, we also had the princesses are bad role models for my daughters movement. A 2007 article by Barbara Ehrenreich reads, Disney likes to think of the princesses, this is how I assume she talks. Disney likes to think of the princesses as role models, but what a sorry bunch of wusses they are. Typically, they spend much of their time in captivity or a coma, waking up only when a prince comes along and kisses them. Blech. So the thing about Disney princess is it's not a trope, it's a brand. It's a literal trademark. The Disney princess brand reached its peak in the late 2000s and was the undisputed leader in princess merchandising.
Today is a perfect day to get married.
I wish they taught shopping in school.
With its major move in the year 2000 being when it decided to package princesses, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Ariel, Belle, Cinderella, Jasmine, Mulan, and Pocahontas under the same marketing umbrella. This move spawned a sales juggernaut. Disney and 300 licensees sell 25,000 princess-themed products. By the year 2007, the franchise was worth $4.6 billion. I feel like what people are grasping for is a critique of a sort of capitalist indoctrination that Disney is so effective at with children, and it is valid to question the way that it follows people through their entire lives. Hell, I am living that right now. But how to quantify the way that that affects people in such a complex system is really difficult and arguably impossible. So the way they went about this was to try to make a coherent narrative, a through line, if you will. If girl like Disney princess, then later girl can't be CEO and girl boss. Take for instance this, the dumbest critique from the Women in Work Commission, reporting on gender and opportunities gaps, found that while girls are outperforming boys at school and at university, they still earn less than men, and the pay gap may be widening. One of the main reasons for this, says the commission, is that little girls spend too much time in the Wendy house, playing with dolls, or pretending to be nurses while their little brothers want to be Bob the Builder. From an early age, girls are being socialized, it seems, for the caring, soft, feminine jobs that perpetuate gender stereotypes, job segregation, and lower pay rates. Yeah, so it's totally valid that, like, childcare and caretaker roles pay less. Girls shouldn't want to do those. They should want to be Bob the Builder.
You've had a busy day, then?
Not really.
Okay, so let's ignore how fucking shitty it is the way that these people just accept that extremely labor-intensive caretaker jobs just deserve to be paid less because feminine. The consequence of Disney princesses isn't that Lil Riley here isn't going to lean in and be a CEO. The consequence is that she's going to grow up with nostalgic feelings towards the Disney company and go to Disney World once a year once she has Lil Rileys of her own.
Where do you find a Mickey pretzel at Magic Kingdom? And is it a snack on the dining plan? Well, come see us at DisneyParksMomsPanel.com.
And that is worth interrogating. But to frame Disney princesses as inherently harmful because they might widen the pay gap or something is just so inherently dishonest and kind of revealingly misogynistic in its own right. The question of how the Disney brand indoctrinates children is a question with no clear answers, and it's not really compelling enough to get people mad to click on the clickbait, so they have to frame it as Disney princesses are harmful, actually. McKaylee might end up as a nurse instead of a CEO. Ariel is the reason for the wage gap.
I want more.
So while I think these discussions are worth having, it turned real stupid real fast. Like we went from, how might Disney princess influence girls' self-perception and reinforce heteronormativity, to pretending like they had any concrete answers to these questions. Ah yes, the wage gap. It's all Ariel's fault. Anyway, it's a really shallow use of your pop feminism, and I vote that we retire it now, please.
I'm sorry, madame.
Part feminism, something .5, Ariel's voice.
What I want from you is your voice.
My voice?
The bad feminism of that era also had this focus on Ariel's literal voice, which is just such a hyper-literal reading of the movie that it's a wonder the Thermians didn't come up with this.
No, not historical documents. They're not all historical documents. I mean, surely you don't think that Gilligan's Island is a...
Those poor people.
Eric doesn't like her because she's silent. If anything, it's despite that. See, Ariel's voice is the first thing that Eric knows about her. If anything, that is the thing that makes her hot, not just to Eric, but to everybody. It's the first thing that is said about her in the movie.
She has the most beautiful voice.
In effect, Eric doesn't know her when he falls in love with her voice. He falls in love with an idea.
You can't speak? Then you couldn't be who I thought.
But in the 3 days that they hang out, he actually gets to know Ariel, who he thinks is, you know...
I know.
Eric, that's the first time I've seen you smile in weeks.
And eventually he kind of likes her for who she is, even though she doesn't have the one thing he was so hung up on, that hot-ass voice. Ariel is basically a space alien, and Eric is cool with that, and honestly, I relate to that. Grimsby here kind of nails it.
Far better than any dream girl is one of flesh and blood.
Eric is in love with an idea, but Ariel is a person in the flesh that he actually kind of has to, do stuff with. Anyway, I'm not saying this is like the most textured and nuanced romance in the history of cinema, but to frame it like Ariel is silencing herself to make herself hot is just like, it's just bad media criticism. Like, that's just not what happens in the movie memes.
My man preferred a lady who could grow up hair.
No, he's
Part feminism, point something something. Ariel's character arc. This was another one that I remember kind of like putting forth that Ariel doesn't grow much in the narrative because she knows what she wants at the beginning, and then she goes for it, and then she gets it. And another kind of dishonest framing is that she, again, gives up everything for a guy.
The moral of my story's changing for a man.
When really, the guy was just the inciting incident. Like, look at her. Look at this nerd. Look at her, like, man cave. Like, if she was a dude in the suburb, that would be just, like, nothing but Simpsons pinball machines. So really, her desire for access to the human world is a desire for mobility and for knowledge. And she wants all of these things way before she lays eyes on Prince Eric. This is a departure from the original Hans Christian Andersen story. In this one, the mermaid dies, but gets the opportunity to earn an immortal soul through 300 years of indentured servitude. Some feminists have argued that Andersen's version allows the mermaid to self-actualize outside of an attachment to someone else, which makes the original more feminist, actually. God, why does everything have to be a competition? Jeez. But that's not what happens in the Andersen story. Instead of being in service to a mortal guy, she enters the service of the ultimate patriarch, for 300 years no less. Either way, it's not her choice to do this thing, and it certainly isn't an empowering tale of autonomy. It is which patriarchy do I subsume myself to in order to get that immortal soul? To a god or to a husband? And I certainly don't think that Hans Christian Andersen was trying to make an empowering tale for young feminists. So, yeah, just let Ariel have the guy. Let her have her sparkly 80s dress, it's fine.
Whatever.
Part 4, True Love. Trademark.
Leave everything behind for a guy I just met, because he's the best bet a princess can.
So, Disney films of the 2000s and the 2010s, they wanted to demonstrate growth within the brand, and much of this was characterized by metatextual criticism of earlier Disney canon, i.e. Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and even The Little Mermaid, which at the time was barely 20 years old.
A book?
I know it's not that fairy tale book you wanted, but this is better.
We got Enchanted.
She's yours.
Don't sing. It's okay. You know, let's just walk.
We got Tangled.
Did Rapunzel and I ever get married? But after years and years of asking and asking and asking, I finally said yes.
We got it in Frozen.
You can't marry a man you just met. You can if it's true love.
Wow, did we get it in Frozen.
I could kiss you. I could. I mean, I'd like to. May I?
Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Do you have daddy issues? I don't even have a mom. Neither do we.
Thanks, I Hate It. So the function of these motifs in these narratives is to feel like criticism, but really it's just reassuring the audience that the fairy tale formula is fine, actually. The main difference here between metatextual Disney and earlier Disney is that the couple gets married after like a year or two, instead of like a week or two.
And you are?
Giselle.
Oh, Giselle! We shall be married in the morning!
So even within these newer films, there's this reassurance that the heteronormative fairy tale formula is fine, actually. And it does jive with your modern feminist cynicism. See? Rapunzel and Eugene waited a while to get married. Feminism.
You mean to tell me you got engaged to someone you just met that day?
Frozen hinging so much of its plot on that is part of why I can't really get on the Frozen train.
If only there was someone out there who loved you.
What?
The prophecy is true.
That and whatever terrifying evil genius engineering made it crack for toddlers. Another thing about Disney repeatedly lampshading the "we got married too quickly" thing is it doesn't actually happen in any Disney movie. Like, pick one. Maybe they fall in love fast, quote, you know, fall in love, but there's never any definite time with regard to the marriage thing. Tangled, wow. They waited 18 to 24 months? Well, we don't know that didn't happen in Cinderella, or Sleeping Beauty, or 101 Dalmatians, or even The Little Mermaid. Like, we don't know how much time elapsed between true love's kiss and marriage, so you're not even subverting anything, Disney, come on. So this metatextual, oh, we took a minute to make sure our feelings are real BS, doesn't actually contradict any of the old movies. Yes, even Cinderella and Snow White. The thing about true love is it's a narrative utility thing. It doesn't have to be super, super literal, especially in movies with literal magic in it where love is hinted to be this magic power.
I will make you a potion that will turn you into a human for 3 days. Got that? 3 days.
In The Little Mermaid, it functions as a ticking clock. 3 days feels urgent, okay? Chop chop, ticking clock. So that's why I'm super sick of this form of Disney metatextual criticism. It feels like growth, but it isn't, because it doesn't actually contradict anything. Because if it did, that would be bad.
Oops, I'm so sorry.
Part something, character arcs. So in screenwriting terms, a character arc is often defined by a want versus a need. The character has a want, which is usually an external motivation.
All I want to do is go to distance.
And a need, which is like sort of an internal motivation. I.e., Nomi wants to be a Las Vegas showgirl, but she needs to,
I like nice tits. I always have. How about you?
I like having nice tits.
Okay, maybe that's a bad example.
Must be weird not having anybody on you.
Okay, Aladdin wants to, be rich and get the girl, but what he needs to do is, learn to be honest about who he is. There, it's a simple one. Disney does this all the time. So, in The Little Mermaid, Ariel does have a concrete want, i.e. an external motivation.
I want to be where the people are.
But not really a need. She doesn't really need to learn anything. She doesn't really grow during the narrative. She has a goal, she strives for it, at the end she gets it. So I guess the question is, does a character need to have growth in order for there to be a satisfying arc? Usually in early Disney movies they don't, with the exception of movies like Pinocchio. Generally the arc for princesses is wants to get married and does. And if there's any character growth, it's probably some side character, like Grumpy learns to not hate women anymore, or the good fairies, I don't know. Okay, maybe that's a bad example. But anyway, by the 90s, a Campbell-style hero's journey character arc was pretty de rigueur for every Disney protagonist. But Ariel's conflict is almost entirely external, which is kind of unusual for Renaissance Disney. Even in the Joseph Campbell rejecting the call to action phase of the character arc, which is exactly what it sounds like, it is an external beat in the form of Sebastian singing Under the Sea.
Ariel, listen to me. The human world, it's a mess.
Ariel doesn't have any internal conflict about her journey. It has to come from Sebastian. But here's my point about all this. This isn't a bad choice. It's just a choice. There's a storytelling truism being that the protagonist is more compelling if they have some hesitance before embarking on their adventure, and Ariel really doesn't. She was just looking for an excuse to get them legs. But would the narrative really have been stronger for it if she had? I don't think so. I guess there could have been a version where Ariel's the one who refuses the call to action for some reason and then changed her mind when Triton's a jerk, but I'm not sure how that would have added anything. But then there's also the screenwriting question of whose story is it? It's not always the protagonist. A popular example of this is from Mad Max Fury Road. Who is the protagonist? Unambiguously, it's Max. He's the point of view character. His growth defines the narrative. But whose story is it? Well, it's Furiosa's story. She is the one who chooses to liberate their wives. It's her actions that spur the plot. She's the one who's pursuing her lost home. She's the one who realizes that her home is now long gone, and she's the one who ultimately learns that maybe the real green place is the friends we made along the way. So The Little Mermaid as a movie is not Ariel's story, it's King Triton's story. Ariel is the point of view character, she is the protagonist, but the character whose growth actually drives and defines the story is Triton's.
Then I guess there's just one problem left. And what's that, Your Majesty? How much I'm going to miss her.
And the conflict that drives the plot is this power struggle between Triton and Ursula.
Why, King Triton? How are you?
King Triton begins the story as an overprotective father who doesn't support his daughter's interests or pursuits. He takes it way too far when he finds out she's been hoarding human stuff, immediately regrets it after he goes overboard, and Ariel also very justifiably fucks off. And Ariel being pretty passive in the third act, in large part because the twist in the third act is Triton giving up his power, well, it kind of works because, again, it's not Ariel's struggle, it was the power struggle between Ursula and Triton that was the main conflict, where Ursula figured out how to make this horny hot dummy into a pawn in their proxy war. That said, I'm not saying it's perfect. I do kind of feel like Act 3 of The Little Mermaid is the weakest link. The elements at play here during Ursula's gigantism episode are a little random. None of it's really set up, except for the idea that there are ships on the bottom of the ocean. There's no Chekhov's Ursula getting big. There's no Chekhov's ship's bow. Eric isn't established as an accomplished helmsman. You know, but it's not bad. It's just not as strong as later Musker and Clement movies like Aladdin or Moana. Aladdin has a really solid ending because Aladdin is set up as kind of being a little manipulative jerk.
No, I never actually wished to get out of the cave. You did that on your own.
It's one of his chief characteristics. He tricks the genie earlier, and then he tricks Jafar at the end. And the idea of genies as prisoners is well established.
You wanted to be a genie? You got it! And everything that goes with it!
So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that the lack of an internal conflict is not necessarily bad, especially when there's a compelling external conflict. But I feel like Ariel's passivity is not really indicative of like feminist fail so much as, you know, the third act just kind of being kind of random. We need to wrap this movie up.
So long, lovey boy.
Alright, so now it's time to talk about the gay shit.
What the fuck?
Number 6, Adaptation and the Gays. Another thing you always see with critiques of Disney movies with regard to adaptation is, you know, something, they change the ending, or, you know, they remove the dark shit or whatever.
Oh, it doesn't look good.
It's hopeless. Absolutely hopeless.
You're telling me I'm losing to a bird!
Probably the biggest adaptational change in The Little Mermaid, aside from the ending, is the original story's focus on the mermaid not just wanting the prince, but wanting an immortal soul. See, mermaids, like the Danish themselves, don't have souls. They just live a long time, but when they die, they turn into sea foam, unlike humans who get heaven everlasting. It's a pretty short story, but honestly, getting to the end of it is kind of heart-wrenching. The mermaid gives up everything for this guy, only for him to patronizingly go on about how he's her little foundling. If he falls in love with her, she gets a soul, but, you know, he doesn't. And he spends the whole story just kind of being really patronizing to her and treating her like a child. And like, wow, if only I could find a wife like you. Wow. Too bad you can't talk.
Dogs are idiots. Think about it, Smithers. If I came into your house and started sniffing at your crotch and slobbering all over your face, what would you say?
If you did it, sir.
But then he marries someone else, and the mermaid sisters go to the sea witch, who gives them this dagger, and they tell the mermaid if she kills the prince, she gets to turn back into a mermaid. But of course, at the last second, she just can't do it. And the sun rises, and she turns into sea foam, but a bunch of, I don't know, other magical angel-adjacent beings, well, they show up, and basically they tell her she can come with them and be put into purgatory, and a sort of indentured servitude to get an immortal soul. Work for us for 300 years and you get your immortal soul. So, bittersweet ending. No prince, but she gets her soul on layaway. I guess in a weird way, the original story has more of a want versus need character arc. The mermaid wants that prince, but she needs the spiritual awakening. She needs that immortal soul. But anyway, the book is gay AF because, like, you know, come on. The mermaid wants this guy and he's like, oh, you're such a good friend. Man, if only I was into you. We could totally get married. If only I was, you know, into people like you. Like, even just reading this, you're like, Hans Christian Andersen wrote this about a guy, right? Maybe. Hans Christian Andersen was possibly asexual, but, you know, definitely aromantic, and he had a lot of love letters, many of them unsent to this one guy, who never ended up returning his affections. So you can tell this is a story about a longing for a person you can't be with, and how that person doesn't really want you, and how that causes you pain every time you were near them. So you want this dude you can't have, but at least there's God. Another thing about the queer theory reading of The Little Mermaid is any version of The Little Mermaid is about passing. Andersen's version can be read a few ways, the most obvious being the crush he had on this dude that he could never express, because, you know, it was a different time.
Two bros chilling in the hot tub, 5 feet apart cause they're not gay.
But it also expresses his discomfort for passing in high society, which he was not born into. And this high society was not kind to the nouveau riche like Hans Christian Andersen. This is another reason why the lazy feminist, hyper-literal, mutilates her body for a man criticism bugs me, because it totally dismisses any reading of the text that is anything but strictly heteronormative. In the current discourse, the most obvious metaphor is the transgender one. Hell, one of the highest profile trans nonprofits in the UK is called Mermaids. But there are lots of ways one can change oneself in order to pass in mainstream society. Ariel knows from basically when she's old enough to know stuff that she doesn't really feel at home in the body she's in, both in the Disney movie and in the original story. and so she goes to incredible lengths to change it. So these cheap, like, Jezebel feminists of 2009 who are like, mew, 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 she gave up her voice and mutilated her body for a man. Like, no, like, I mean, that's not what happens, but...
She's got legs, you idiot! She traded her vice to the sea witch and got legs. Jeez, man.
Ariel's whole thing is breaking away from exactly what her society is asking her to do. So I'm not saying that the heteronormative read is completely illegitimate, but for people to treat it like that's the only read is lazy and basic, and I'm just kind of tired of it. So anyway, so the OG short story is gay AF. Moving on. Part something. The Disney version is gay AF too, just, you know, not in the same way.
They weren't kidding when they called me, well, a witch.
In the early days of queer theory, this was like, why are all the villains queer-coded?
Oh, I shall practice my curtsy.
I use antlers in all of my decorating.
But now we've more or less come around to the correct opinion, which is yes, they are. They are extremely queer-coded. And also they are awesome and we stan.
You know, my last captain of the guard was a bit of a disappointment to me.
Ursula is more than queer-coded. It is well known that her design was heavily inspired by the drag queen Divine, who was most famous for starring in John Waters films like Hairspray.
I watched that tramp and I'm embarrassed to be white.
And Pink Flamingos.
Does blood turn you on? It does more than turn me on, Mr. Vader. It makes me come.
And Female Troubles.
I hate you! Fuck you! Fuck you both, you awful people! You're not my parent!
Voice actress Pat Carroll conceived Ursula as like an aging Shakespearean actress, which explains so much of the performance.
Look at me, wasted away to practically nothing. My poor little poopsies.
And don't underestimate the importance of body language.
Oh, you thirsty, bitch? I'm taking this mother. Give me the shoe, bitch.
And she ends up as sort of a composite of drag and camp icons. Joan Collins.
Known you know where to find the boys and the boobs.
Tallulah Bankhead.
My good woman, would you kindly leave the premises before I grab your pink hair and put it out by its black roots?
3 days.
Norman Desmond.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
And of course, Divine.
You're a pain too, Taffy. A pain in my big asshole.
Like in a lot of ways, this goes beyond coding. This is clearly deliberate, especially considering how much Poor Unfortunate Souls resembles a traditional drag show.
But you'll find that nowadays I've mended all my ways.
She uses her eels as a boa. This is also the first Disney movie to use Alan Menken and Howard Ashman, who were at the time best known for the Broadway camp hit Little Shop of Horrors. Quick note on Howard Ashman. It's not a coincidence that the most iconic songs of the Disney Renaissance came out of those first 3 movies, but then kind of out after that.
They're not like you and me, which means they must be evil.
And that's not nostalgia, that's Howard Ashman, who died from complications from AIDS in 1991. And while it's not like Menken never wrote any good music again, I feel like he was at his strongest writing with Ashman. Ashman was deathly ill during the production of Beauty and the Beast, and if you really want some heartstrings tugged, listen to the people who worked with him describe the way he kept on trucking until the very end.
Howard was physically there. He had lost a lot of weight. He was, he was wearing his shirt with suspenders, and trying to be as casual as possible, and certainly didn't want to project any sense of illness. At that point, nobody else professionally knew that he was sick.
Another thing that tends to get lost in analysis of this movie, Menken and Ashman had a huge influence not just on the music, but also the story itself. Not only did they help shape the story, they had the songs and score written before animation even began. And in that way also helped shape the characters, particularly Ursula, who is defined by her big musical number.
The boss is on a roll!
That's Menken and Ashman, Ursula's drag show basically explaining gender performativity theory by way of Judith Butler, but far more entertaining.
You'll have your looks, your pretty face, body language.
Menken and Ashman. So the read of Poor Unfortunate Souls' drag performance was deliberate. Menken and Ashman especially would have been steeped in New York drag culture. So I don't read this as Disney being appropriative. To me, this is Ashman writing what he knows. So in my old age, Ursula is far and away my favorite thing in this movie, possibly because I'm only about 3 years away from morphing into her completely. But I love Ursula the older I get. As a brand, Disney villains have always been my favorite. And of course, most recent Disney movies don't do villains in the traditional sense anymore. Like, they'll do the bait and switch, or the misunderstood, or sympathetic motivations, or whatever this is. But after Shadow Man and Mother Gothel, they kind of petered off on pure, fun evil.
Come on, boys. Won't you shake a poor sinner's hand?
And I don't know what it is about evil without nuance that I find so appealing in the case of Disney villains, but I think it's really just the fact that they're having fun.
Thirsty? Have a drink.
That everyone in a Disney movie is having fun, including the bad guy. This is why, of classic Disney, I think Maleficent is the most beloved. She, out of all of them, is having a high old time. People don't remember the Dalmatians, they remember Cruella. Look at how much fun she's having. This is part of why, of the Renaissance Disney movies, the most beloved ones tend to have the most memorable villains.
Why do we even have that lever?
And that's part of why the Black Cauldron is widely considered the worst one. I'm sorry, guys, I know you love John Hurt, but he sucks in this.
Oh, my soldiers, how long I have thirsted to be a god.
In fact, the Black Cauldron nearly ended the animation studio until The Great Mouse Detective, the best Sherlock Holmes movie of all time, Don't At Me, quite literally saved the studio.
Smile, everyone.
Disney now owns the world. Thank you, The Great Mouse Detective.
I have the power!
Of course you do.
I feel like it's not one of those situations like Hunchback of Notre Dame where we all kind of reevaluate whether it got a fair shake upon its first release, because
I'm losing to a bird!
Everybody likes The Little Mermaid. And you know, it's not bad, it's not the best one, it's fine. But you know, there was that backlash that was kind of lazy and targeting the popular thing because that was what the clickbait was for a while. But thank God we've moved on, and now our clickbait is like, I don't know, UFOs? Wow, what a good segue. Hi, I'm Alan Smithy, the director of this film. Are you tired of science fiction books with lyrical, poetic prose? Do you like weird space aliens? Are you a fan of the comical misuse of everyday household I guess I didn't really do that, did I? That was a missed opportunity. I should have done that.
But you didn't.
Well, you should pre-order my book, Truth of the Divine. It is the second book, meaning it's the sequel to the first book, which is Axiom's End. Oh boy. See, this is what y'all tuned in for. This is the requisite self-promo portion. I'm gonna do better this time, because it is a better book. It's got everything. The Cheesecake Factory, President Dick Cheney, congressional hearings, Persians, sadness. And the reason I promote these now is that pre-orders are extremely helpful, not just for me, but for any author you want to help. So if you have a favorite author you want to support and they have a book that's coming out, pre-order their book. And then like 6 months from now, you get like a magic package in the mail, and then you'll be like, oh, right, I guess I did order that. And the best thing about pre-orders is you do not get charged until the book ships. So if I get canceled again, you can just cancel your order. So another question I get a lot, will there be signed copies? Yes. Do I know how that's gonna work? No. They haven't told me yet. I'll put that in the next video. But if it's anything like last time, it's putting your receipt for the thing you already bought into like an online portal. I don't know. I'll let you know later. It's gonna be great. So the pre-order link for Truth of the Divine is in the description, unless you are in the UK, in which case, pre-order the book through your favorite UK-based online retailer, because the UK edition has a different publisher. And that has caused some confusion. This also applies to Australia, New Zealand, but not Canada. And for those of you in the rest of the world, I don't know, use a VPN. I have no control over how to ship to what country or foreign language rights. So far, the only country that has bought foreign language rights is Turkey. No, I'm not kidding. I know, Brazilians. I know. Consider petitioning your publishers. Also, I will come to Brazil. I promise. We were gonna go in 2020, but there was, there was a thing.
Feliz com a escolha dela.
Hand to your very, very large Christ. We were going to come in 2020. We'll come eventually. So anyway, pre-order Truth of the Divine, about which the New York Times has said nothing because they haven't gotten a review copy yet. But in the meantime, thank you for watching, and I hope you spend the rest of your Pride Month stanning Ursula.
Don't be scared. It's only me. And you can all come. Everyone can come. Every creature in the sea can come.
Where she went off
Hi, Father. Sorry I'm late.
What? Well, I'm not leaving you up there alone this time.
You mean you'll go with me?
It doesn't look like I have a choice.
Oh, it'll be so much fun. You'll see. Come on, let's go.
I can hardly wait. I'm not a fish. I'm a dolphin. And that's not very nice to say. I'm your official royal pet. Don't you like me?
Did you hear that, Cecil? The prince is gonna marry her.
Well, I hope so, Claudia. I hope so. Stop the storm! Stop the storm!
Away, sky creatures! Away! Oh, you mean they're getting married?